Hi, I'm Josh Jacobson, Artistic Director of the Zamir Chorale of Boston, and I am delighted to welcome you to a new program called A Choral Rainbow. You know, more than 54 million Americans sing in a chorus of some kind, and there are so many kinds of choruses: school choruses, primary school, middle school, high school, college, conservatory, choirs that serve houses of worship, show choirs, barbershop quartets and sweet Adelines, a cappella groups, professional choirs, symphony choruses, festival choruses, community choruses. We're everywhere. Many of these choruses explore a wide variety of repertoire, while others are dedicated to the preservation and performance of a repertoire based on a particular cultural heritage. And some choruses are built on a common identity and create safe spaces for community in harmony. I've invited 3 conductors to join us for this program as we explore what makes the music and the membership of their choruses so special. And in future programs, we'll hear from other conductors in their choirs, representing a broad spectrum of communities. Not a melting pot, but a rainbow of communities. You know, we have seen a disturbing rise of racism, anti-Semitism, ethnic xenophobia, and the marginalization of women's voices and the voices of those from people of differing ethnic, sexual, physical, and cognitive identities. Let's hear from some people whose backgrounds may be different from ours. Maybe the language of music can help us cross some of those invisible borders that have kept us apart. Tonight we'll be meeting David Hodgkins, conductor of Coro Allegro, Boston's LGBTQ+ and allied classical chorus. Micah Hendler, conductor of the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, a choral and dialogue program for Palestinian and Israeli youth in Jerusalem. And Diana Sáez, a leading specialist in the field of Latin American choral music. So I am here today with David Hodgkins, who's conductor of Coro Allegro, Boston's LGBTQ+ and allied classical chorus. David is also the artistic director of the New England Classical Singers, director of music at the Commonwealth School, and an advanced conducting instructor at the Kodály Music Institute. David is well known for his many appearances as guest conductor, festival conductor, and clinician. And David grew up not too far from here in Reading, Massachusetts. Welcome, David.
Well, thank you, Josh. It's nice to be here. This is a wonderful project, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it.
Thank you. Well, David, let's start off. Tell us about Coro Allegro. How and when and why did it get started?
Well, it was initially started as an offshoot of the Boston Gay Men's Chorus, actually. The founder, David Cutler, sang with BGMC and missed having SATB repertoire. In a former life, he was a professional French horn player in the Israeli Philharmonic, and then went deaf, actually, so he had to stop his career. So he wanted to continue in another way, so he founded this group, and it's been his baby, as he calls it, and this is 31 years ago.
Wow.
The initial byline was gay lesbian, which then we added the B for LGB, and then we added the T, and then we added the Q, and then so as the society has evolved, so has Coro, and it is that's why we say LGBTQ plus, because there are we try to be as inclusive as we possibly can. So it's the idea was to have a binary kind of mission as a high-level musical organization and also a social organization, or a place where LGBTQ folks felt comfortable being, and building bridges. That's really a part of our mission, is to build bridges to disparate communities. So we are always looking for and trying to do other different things, you know. So it's not just about the LGBTQ plus community, but reaching out to other communities and making connections and fostering goodwill.
What are some of these connections that you have made over the years?
So we've made many connections. We have done things with the Terrorism Music Foundation. We have worked with Landmarks Orchestra. We have worked with Keshet, which is an organization that promotes the LGBTQ way of life and it melds that with the Jewish way of life. We have worked with Horace Boyer on gospels and spiritual music. We have worked with the Heritage Chorale of New Haven when we've done and they lynched him on a tree. We have had women composers. Patricia Van Ness has been a composer almost in residence for 30 years. Siobhan Elder, who's a piece we're doing now for the TMF, Terrorism Music Foundation concert. So there's a purpose of trying to make a connection with a real community where this music is fostered and loved. So
wow, that's a lot of outreach.
Yeah.
Now your repertoire, you're devoted mostly to the quote unquote classical repertoire, but it seems that you are looking for other more unusual pieces that might reflect a wider palette of music.
Yes,
and a wider palette of society too, I might add.
Right. And I think that we sort of cut our teeth on Haydn, Mozart pieces and have gotten very, very good reviews for those. But we also have commissioned 30 major works over the course of the years. We did a piece with the United Parish Church Choir in Brookline by Karim Rustam, who's a Syrian composer, on text of Khalil Gibran called The Son of Man. So the Syrian Lebanese community was brought together through that piece. We've done a piece called The Luta Continua by Eric Banks, which was focusing on Ugandan LGBTQ community where David Kato Chizuli, who was the head of that, was murdered. Early on, we commissioned a piece by Patricia Van Ness called Voice of the 10th Muse on Hildegard von Bingen texts. Our very first commission was with Kenneth Fuchs called In the Clearing, which is eight Robert Frost poems, which is about nature, but also the cycle of coming out. The idea is to build bridges, to reach out to other communities, to bring communities together through partnerships and through music, so.
That's a fabulous, fabulous statement of the mission. So David, set us up for this video that we are about to watch.
This is a piece by Kenneth Fuchs from In the Clearing that we premiered way back 20, 30 years ago in Tampa. It's called Devotion, and we did this in honor of we did a program for the Gail choruses in honor of their devotion to all of the choruses during the pandemic and how they were able to, they almost folded, and so they were able to pull it together, and we have continued on. So it's in honor of Gail choruses.
David, who are the singers in Coro Allegro?
I would say that we tend to be about 55 to 60, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Um, and they are from all walks of life. I probably have in Coro right now, out of those 60, probably 8 or 9 people who are actual music teachers. Um, and but we also have doctors and lawyers and physicists and LGBTQ plus and their friends is an excellent description. So it makes life interesting because sometimes those communities clash at times, and so we have a lot of discussion about things, and we've done pieces that have been very very difficult to sing. William Grant Still and They Lynched Him on a Tree. And the white chorus and black chorus is what it's set for. And so, what is white and what is black? But the white chorus had to be, at the very beginning, the white chorus is the lynching mob,
Oh.
and so,
It's like the Jews in the St. John Passion.
yes, oh, exactly, exactly. So we've taken on some really difficult, challenging things. Even in the Aluta Continua, which is Eric Banks's piece about David Cato, there are places where we have to be the crowd in that piece, and we're talking about kill the gays, and that's it's hard. It's hard, and it took a lot of processing.
It's
Yeah.
hard to be an actor
Yes. Yes.
and to assume a role even though it does not reflect the essence of who you are
That's
actually.
right. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard. It's been hard at times.
It seems like your group has done a lot to dispel stereotypes. But let me ask you, is there any conflict with you not being a part of that community as the artistic director?
I have never had a problem with it. Ironically, other people, I had one of my mentors said, David, this is going to pigeonhole you for your career if you take this on. And I said, well, it shouldn't pigeonhole me because it's still music and it's still people, and I feel that way today. And when I first got the job, Bay Windows said, reviewed my first concert and said, the courage of Coro Allegro to hire a straight white male was not lost on people, but the result was fabulous, and that was really what it boiled down to. When we went to Gala in Tampa, we were backstage for our dress rehearsal for the performance of Ken Fuchs's works, and there was a woman there who was guiding us, onto the stage, and she turned to me and said, "You don't belong here." And so I said, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I feel like I do belong here, and Coro certainly belongs here." I will say that this woman actually at the next Gala conference came up to me and apologized after she heard Coro sing and knew what our message was, and she said, "Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah."
I
So
think we all have to open up. And
yes,
sometimes, especially those of us in alienated communities who are feeling the pain, need to open up and not just withdraw within that pain.
absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting. I was very fortunate to be a student and then a colleague and friend of Horace Boyer, the epitome of understanding and knowledge of gospel and
Yes.
spirituals. And early on, when I was at UMass with him, he brought Jester Hairston to the concert to the university, and we had a huge choir, and I was able to be the accompanist. Horace named me the accompanist for the thing, and he talked about style a lot. And so he talked about I remember a piece, "I Can Tell the World About This," that he set. So it's all written straight eighth notes. I can tell the world. I went to YouTube to see if there were any recordings of the piece, and there were a couple of sort of white church choirs in the Midwest singing straight eighth note. And it's like any kind of performance practice, right? If you don't understand the music. Now, I was fortunate enough to work with Hairston directly, but even now, I think people, if you understood the music, you would know, "I can tell the world." It would have a swing, a backbeat to it, right?
Yes, about this, I can tell the nations, yes, that are blessed. I can tell the world, yes, about this, I can tell the nations, yes.
But who's teaching those things now? I mean, Hairston's gone, Horace is gone, right? So I applaud the people for doing the music. It's great, but we also have to go a little bit deeper and understand what the music really is. And I have to say, as a white man, am I the one to actually tell people about performance practice, about spirituals and gospel music? I'm not sure that I am.
We need to treat all music in a sense with the same respect. So for
Absolutely.
performance practice, whatever it is. Yeah. So David, do you feel that you and Coro Allegro are making a difference?
I do. We have CDs out of many of our commissioned works. The hardest thing is that we try to do what we do, and I think the people that we touch, we do make a difference, but I'm not sure, it would be lovely to touch more people. I mean, it's a small organization, by a lot of standards. And so our reach has been national through Gala and through ACDA, and through Chorus America, and we've won 2 awards from Chorus America. The awards are great, but it's not why we do what we do, and it's really nice to get recognized for it. But I think we have had some really fabulous exposure because of those organizations. I would say our audience is not a gargantuan audience, but it's a very loyal audience, and we keep trying to do new things. Yeah, I mean, one of the ironic things was that, part of the problem sometimes is that we are LGBTQ plus, and people have a certain expectation, rightly or wrongly, they have an expectation. And so I remember years ago, my dad brought a friend to one of the choral concerts, and she turned to him and said, "Well, they're just like everybody else."
I love it.
Well, yes, that is the point. Actually, they all are like everybody else. And
that is great. That is great.
I think we have reached out across boundaries, real and artificial, and tried to make a difference. And that's what our mission is. So
wonderful. So David, set us up for the video that we are about to watch.
This is a piece by Craig Carnahan, who was a gay composer, called Armistice 1918. It's a celebration of the end of World War I. And the opening is quite dramatic with the angst of the war, the pain of the war. And then all of a sudden it changes from this very dramatic opening to this major chord. And the first line is, "Everyone suddenly burst out singing." I think that there's connections to the World War I, but also to the pandemic itself, where we have gone through this really long, arduous time, and now we are on the other end, hopefully, or partly anyway, and we are moving forward with live performing. So that's what we're doing, singing.
So, David, thank you so much for being with us. This was a great pleasure having this conversation with you.
Oh, Josh, it was my pleasure and my honor, really, and to be chosen for this.
Thank you. I'm here with Diana Sáez, a leading specialist in the field of Latin American music and an accomplished choral conductor. Many of her arrangements are published and performed worldwide. She frequently appears as guest conductor, adjudicator, and lecturer in the United States and abroad. Dr. Sáez is the director of choral activities at Towson University in Baltimore, Maryland, where she conducts the University Chorale, the Women's Chorus, and Choral Society. And prior to this appointment, Sáez was artistic director of Corál Cantigas, a semi-professional choir performing music from Spain and Latin America. Diana is from Puerto Rico and came here as a college student and stayed. Diana, as someone who specializes in choral music from Jewish traditions, I am sensitive to the fact that many of my colleagues are unaware that the term Jewish music covers a multitude of periods and styles. Conductors tend to stereotype, oversimplify, and pigeonhole this repertoire, and they often relegate it as a token in a so-called multicultural concert of world music. Now, I would guess that Latinx also covers a very wide swath of cultures. So I hope you will enlighten us about various different forms and styles and periods. So, welcome. Let's hear.
Thank you. Yes, you are right when you say that our music tends to be pigeonholed. And that was probably the reason why years ago I decided to found Corál Cantigas in the Washington, D.C. area. Every time I do a presentation about Latin American music, I always, I like to start by asking the audience, what comes to mind when you think about Latin American music? And the words are always the same: fun, dancing, like, salsa. And then I start talking about the development of choral music in Latin America that started when the Spaniards arrived, right? And most of the music was written for the church.
Right,
So
there's a long classical tradition.
yes, and I don't consider that fun because, I mean, it's fun, but not in the sense that people think. Many people are not aware that there's a very long history that started, that the first piece of music, of choral music, published in the whole continent was in Peru, in Cusco, in 1631, I think. But it was a very short piece. It was like a tiny motet, but it was written in the language of the Incas, in Quechua. But you hear this piece, the Hanak Pacha, and it sounds churchy, right? Because it's in 4 parts, very chordal. And then you have the chapel masters that came from Portugal, from Spain, and they would write pieces in the style of Gabrieli in Puebla, Mexico, because they had huge cathedrals. And they needed to fill these cathedrals, so they started training the natives to sing in the European style. Now,
Is there any influence of the indigenous culture
yes,
aside from the language
exactly.
in which the songs were
Yes.
sung?
I would say that starts to happen mostly in the 20th century with the most contemporary composers, because there's a nationalist feeling now, right? Now all these countries have gained their independence, and now you have Venezuela, you have Mexico, and you have Peru, and they are trying to, they don't want anything to do with the colonists anymore, right? Okay, so very quick history class. We have the Native Americans. They were living here. We have these amazing cultures like the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, and many others that were not as powerful. Then the European come. They had their music instruments. They had their scales. So something new comes out of that fusion, right? You find all over Latin America different kinds of guitars. You find in the Andes a guitar made out of armadillo shell. That's what they had. Then you go to Venezuela, you have the Venezuelan cuatro, like a ukulele with 4 strings. And you've seen the mariachi, they have like 5 different types of guitars there. So it's very interesting, right? And then we cannot forget the strong African influence. Only 5% of the Africans that were forced to come to the Americas ended up in the United States. Only 5%. The rest ended up all over Latin America, the Caribbean, Brazil, Argentina, all Central America. So all Latin America has African influence. And so again, you have this mix, this fusion. This is what we call transculturation. You have from all these elements, you have something new comes out of it. And that's what Latin American folk music is. So Caramba, it's a song by a very famous folk singer and writer. His name was Otilio Galindez. It's a very well-known folk song. It's very simple. It's a love song, very simple, beautiful melody. But then Alberto Grau makes a very interesting and more modern version of it, or arrangement out of this song, using clusters of notes, right, at the end of every verse.
So it's a big tent, and there are many different styles within that, and people tend to just group everything together
Exactly,
from the
and
outside.
that's where people tend to generalize. The folk music of Latin America, it's so diverse, and in Peru, you have the music from the mountains, from the Andes. It has a stronger Native American music. So there the sounds are more the pan pipes, the charango guitar that I was talking to you about with the armadillo shell, the pentatonic scales, modal scales. Then you have the Pacific, and you have a strong African, and they have the cajon, the donkey jaw, lots of syncopation, and that's all in Peru. So the same thing happens in every country. Every country has its own diversity.
And of course, speaking of fusion, when we're talking about choral music, that's basically a Western European
Yes,
concept.
exactly, concept, exactly. Venezuela, they have so much folk music, and it's so ingrained in people that all the choirs sing folkloric music. I would consider the Venezuelan arrangements of folk music some of the most intricate and fascinating, and they have developed like their own language of, they use a lot of pling 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 pling, and that I know that's imitating the plucking of the harp.
Oh, so the singers are doing that.
You know, that's imitating the percussive rhythm of the cuatro and the maracas. So you know, it's they have developed, some of their arrangements are almost virtuosistic.
So you and I have similar feelings about the concept of world music as a category. Can you expand on that a little bit?
It's just that I have so much respect for the so-called world music. When you come from a country like Puerto Rico, where music is such a big part of your daily life, I consider, so now I'm going to talk about my personal experience. I come from this tiny island that is very musical. And when I say very musical, it's an understatement. My family, for example, they didn't have any formal education in music, but they would all harmonize and they would play guitar. And so I learned to harmonize, and I learned to sing in harmony before I went to school and learned about scales and harmony. And we are living in, I think this world now, it's not as segregated as before. Now there's so much moving, you know, there's this fluidity from Europe to Latin America, from Latin America to Europe, from Africa to United States. So what is world music? All music is world music,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. And performance practice is for all music, right?
Performance practice, or the responsibility to learn performance practice, it's we need to take it as seriously as we take it when we are going to perform Bach.
So are there things, I mean, without generalizing, are there things that we need to know about performing Latinx repertoire in terms of performance practice?
Well, we need to the first thing is that you have to do your research. Where does this piece comes? It comes from this country. From what tradition? Who were the people who sang this type of music?
So you told me that for 25 years you conducted Corál Cantigas, which is a choir that specialized in this repertoire. So how and when did it get started, and what was its mission?
When I first came to this country, I've always wanted to be a choral conductor. And I noticed that in schools, when I went to very good schools, they would never mention anything whatsoever about music from Latin America. And I knew there was, because I have heard the courses in Puerto Rico, the University of Puerto Rico, and I had heard Venezuelan choirs before I came to the States. And it's like, this is so interesting, you know, that there's no, that they're not even aware that it exists.
They don't even know that they don't know.
They don't even know that they don't know. That's a good one, yes. And even when I even had the experience that I would approach someone with, you know, I have these arrangements, and there was no interest whatsoever. So once I got married, and we moved to the Washington, D.C. area, which is very diverse. So once I announced, I said, maybe I should start that choir myself, and where I will be able to perform these arrangements that I had and no one cared about. And I had a very positive reaction right away. There were the people that sang in my choir were people who had sang in their countries of origin. That was at the very beginning. So these people actually enriched the choir, because it was through these people that I would acquire more arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
And then that meant that I had to do the research. And so there was a lot of work on my part to get because it's all about the diversity. When you say, what is Latin American music?
Mm-hmm.
Latin American music is many musics. That's what it is, many.
Yes, we have to use the word music in the plural. So, Diana, tell us about this video that we're about to watch, please.
El Aparacido is a beautiful song by a Chilean folk singer. His name was Víctor Jara. Víctor Jara was a songwriter, composer. He worked in theater. He was an educator. And he was a leftist also in Chile during the 60s and early 70s. And when there was a coup in Chile in 1973, a military coup that was it was horrible. It was very bloody and unjust. And one of the first people they caught as prisoner was Víctor Jara, who was an artist. They killed him. Correle, correle, correla, like run, 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 because they're going to kill you. But it's also very hopeful.
So, do you feel that you have made a difference with Corál Cantigas and with the rest of your work in opening up this repertoire to a larger public?
I have to say that yes, Cantigas made a difference. Cantigas actually started traditions in the city. The last few years, the Christmas concerts, for example, that is something that is very strong, that the Christmas celebrations in Latin America are something that are very big and very diverse. And the people would come to the concerts just to participate in the sing-alongs. The people that would come to our concerts, they would already learn these songs and they would expect these songs. And I'm not talking about Latin American people necessarily. And that was very beautiful. So, and also there were young people who were born, there were children of Latinx people who had been born and raised here, and they would join Cantigas and they would be so thankful for the opportunity to learn about their some of their traditions or the diversity, or, sometimes they couldn't even speak the language well, but they were learning. But I think so. I think we became a great resource for other choirs. Yeah. I think music is a great connector. Music, one of the things that I learned from Cantigas, and every time I research music, everything I find are connections, historical connections with the African people, with the Jewish culture, with it's, and I have learned so much about history through music, through learning music and where the music comes from and those traditions. And that for me, has made the world smaller to me. I am a big believer in the power of music to create bridges, and that's something that I have seen it and I have lived it.
So Diana, tell us something about this video that we're about to watch.
Festejo is my own arrangement. Years ago, I got very interested in the rhythms of from the Afro-Peruvian tradition, and during the pandemic, I finished this arrangement during the pandemic because I had more time, and I sent it to a colleague of mine in Peru who conducts women's choir at the Catholic University in Lima, and she asked me if she could do it with her group. And I said that would be an honor. What if we do a collaboration, and that way I can teach it to my students here in Baltimore, and that way they will get to collaborate with a Peruvian choir. What I like the most about this collaboration is that they added the real instruments.
And what are those instruments? There's something looks like a jawbone or something.
Oh, that's a donkey jaw. Try to take that on a plane, on a flight, and go to security.
Bone. And what are the others? There's
the cajon,
wooden drum.
The cajon, which the cajon was created by the Afro-Peruvians. Is basically a box, and they used the guiro. They added a guitar, and they added zapateo, which is the dancer.
Dicen que allá viene, no se sabe quién.
Thank you so much, Deanna, for being with us. I've learned so much in this, and I love the music that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Great. So I'm here now with Micah Hendler. Micah is the founder and artistic director of the Jerusalem Youth Chorus, which is a choral and dialogue program for Israeli and Palestinian young people from both East and West Jerusalem. He is also a founding partner of Raise Your Voice Labs. He writes about music, society, and social change for Forbes, and a whole lot more. Micah grew up in Washington, D.C. He studied music and international studies at Yale and moved to Israel in 2012. Welcome, Micah.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Well, first of all, tell us about how and why this wonderful choir got started.
So I started the Jerusalem Youth Chorus in 2012. Actually, when I went to Jerusalem, it was for the express purpose of starting this chorus. And it really came out of a whole lifetime, short lifetime up until this point, of having seen music work so powerfully as a community building force, and how that could really complement deep transformative group work through dialogue.
What made you think of doing it in Israel, though?
Well, so I attended Seeds of Peace when I was in high school, which is a summer camp and dialogue program for teens from conflict regions, specifically centered on the Middle East, but not exclusively at that time. And it was the first time that I had ever heard the sort of Palestinian narrative. Like, as a Jewish person growing up in the United States, I was fed a very sort of one-sided version of what was going on there. And through the dialogue process, I saw an entirely new expanse of reality that I hadn't seen before. And so I wanted to continue investing in that process. And I saw through that over time doing that work, how music could actually complement that kind of world opening by creating a container of trust and of shared identity and of common performance that allowed people to open up to one another and one another's ideas in different ways.
Wow, beautifully put. Tell us about, who are the kids? Who are these singers?
So we work with young singers from East and West Jerusalem, Palestinian and Israeli, and many other things also. We have Armenian kids. Sometimes we have international kids who come. We really welcome everyone. And that's a fundamental value that we hold and teach and show the singers like why this matters in a way that is very, very different than the dominant reality in Jerusalem. As when I give tours of the old city of Jerusalem informally to friends who are visiting, I basically say that the theme, the bottom line of the old city of Jerusalem is, if there's something different about us, let's fight about it. And what we're trying to do in the chorus is the polar opposite of that. It is about celebrating difference. It is about creating a space where everyone can be fully and authentically themselves and create together from that point.
So you're acknowledging that there are two narratives, at least.
Oh, absolutely. At least, yeah.
Micah, set up the video that we're about to watch, please.
Sure. So Home from Home is a pandemic version of the original, our first music video ever, which was Home, cover of the song by Philip Phillips, which really is the anthem of the chorus. And the words really reflect the kind of community that we are trying to build and have built with and among our singers. The words, of course, are settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. Trouble, it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Know you're not alone, because I'm going to make this place your home. And that really summarizes what we do. And so this video that you're going to see is the chorus and the global community of artists and supporters and hosts and fans and whoever from all over the world who's lives we've touched and with whom we have intersected and who have supported us in different ways, coming together from their homes to create a resounding musical message that was released near the beginning of the pandemic.
מה קורה? אני ממש מתגעגעת לכולכם. אז בואו נתחיל.
Let's sing, shall we?
Here we go.
Shall we? Yeah.
This is Maria from my house in the old city.
This is home from Beit Halima, Jerusalem.
This is Achinon Mimi.
This is Mira Awad. I love you all.
مرحبا أنا محمد الأعور من الجوقة وبدي أغني لكم.
This is Joanna Jones from my home in Hollywood.
It's Rami coming to you live from the French show.
I'm excited to be connected with everyone across the globe.
This is Craig Jessup from my home in Providence, Utah.
I try to use my voice as a weapon of mass connection.
This is Kiro Butcher, second Baramallah.
Hi, Alina Dash.
Hi, I'm Sam Shuri. And I'm Casey Brevis. And I'm so happy that this song, Home, that I got to record with the JYC is bringing so many people together at this time.
Hi, it's Alice. Hello from my home in Rahavia.
Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down some familiar road, and although this way straight us along, just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
My favorite choir. You are a light of hope.
This is a moment where the world is reevaluating what home can be and what kind of responsibility we have.
The more love, the better for all of us.
We all are one in this world, just the way it is.
حبيت أنا اليوم أهدي هاي الكوميديا لكل واحد بالزوجة.
يا خزكين ونابغتكم بأخ.
I'm sending lots of love. Stay safe, everyone. We're all in the same boat.
מקווה שכולם יעברו את התקופה הזאת בשלום. ביי.
So what happens when you have a rehearsal with the kids or a meeting? Because it's not just about the music, right?
Right, exactly. So we have a facilitated dialogue process that runs through the entire year. And so each 4-hour rehearsal, we have a weekly 4-hour rehearsal, starts with singing for an hour. And then we have an hour and a half of facilitated dialogue, and then back to another hour of singing with some breaks. So it comes out to 4 hours. That is a unique model that allows the chorus to do what we do, which is to say, not only make music, but actually create a community that crosses conflict that can persist through continued rounds of violence and injustice and provocation and people telling the kids not to come back and all of the things that happen in Jerusalem that could otherwise really undermine our work. We have a space where we can process that, where we can work through that and actually use those difficulties and challenges as material for creating new music.
Wow, you must have some great staff that works with you. And does it ever explode with frustration and antagonism on the part of the kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if given the intense environment that they live in and that we work in as the chorus, there would be no way for it not to. And what we try to do is create a space where things can come up as they come up. We create sort of an opportunity for people to air whatever is going on with them on a weekly basis in whatever way, not just personally, but also politically and in terms of their identity, their family, their neighborhood, their religion, like whatever's going on for them. And there's a lot. But we create a space where everything can be brought to the table honestly, and we work through it as best we can. And that becomes so important to the kids that in a time of war, for example, and this has happened consistently over the last 10 years, instead, particularly in times of war, like social media, for example, becomes unbearable. Like people are just so polarized and are only hearing the most extreme versions of the other. Instead of coming to a place of like, oh my God, I can't believe you wrote that on Facebook. We're never talking again. It becomes, oh my God, I can't believe you wrote that on Facebook. We need to talk.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that is a fundamental switch that happens because we have the dialogue space.
So what language do you all speak in rehearsals, and how do you choose repertoire that is not going to be offensive on either side?
So we speak English, Hebrew, and Arabic in rehearsals. There is no common spoken language in the chorus. And we make sure that everyone, regardless of whatever sort of educational opportunities they've had, generally corresponding to like how much money they have, that anyone from any socioeconomic status in Jerusalem can be in the chorus. It was an amazing thing for me to actually see a tangible result of our having decided to be open to people of all language backgrounds and translate everything, and which is a serious decision and takes a long time and a lot of patience and money. But we've decided to make that choice, but it had a very tangible musical impact on the group in that most of the singers who come from particularly traditional Arabic only language constellations generally are more steeped in traditional Arabic music as well, and bring an extraordinary set of abilities, which is totally different than sort of a normal Western choir in terms of improvisation, in terms of singing in a particular style, and soloing in just extraordinary ways. Whereas if we had decided, you know what, everyone has to speak English, it's unfortunate, but like it's just the only way, we would have lost a core element of our sound without knowing it.
So the repertoire that you do comes from many different traditions?
Comes from many different traditions. We really strive to make each singer feel like their musical identity is also represented in the group in one way or another. Obviously, not everyone likes all the songs that we sing. That's the nature of being in a group of, just being any group of people.
Right.
But we source songs also from the singers. We write songs collaboratively.
Now, it seems like you're getting a lot of support on your videos. I see some very prominent musicians who are performing with you. You can tell us about that. And do you get any support from government or NGOs?
Yeah, so we have had the amazing opportunity to work with some incredible musicians over the last now almost 10 years. Specifically on the sort of Israeli-Palestinian music scene, we've worked a great deal with David Broza and Mira Awad, Achinoam Nini, Sha'anan Street, et cetera, just like some amazing artist activists who are really leading the field of peace building in their musical way in the Israeli-Palestinian context. And we've also gotten to work with some extraordinary global artists. Recently, we just released a video with Ziggy Marley, which is just an extraordinary honor. We've worked with Andy Grammer and a number of other, non-Jerusalem related artists, but who simply have been really moved by the work that we're doing. And that's been an amazing thing also for these artists to see that they can leverage their platforms to help amplify the voices of our singers. And it's a really meaningful thing, and makes a big difference, in terms of for our singers, seeing that people actually care about what they have to say and what they have to sing, both as Israelis and Palestinians, that they have a chance to make an important musical and political statement as themselves, but also just as teenagers, as young people, to see that like somebody cares what they have to say.
So you feel that you have made a difference?
Yes, I can say that we have made a real transformative difference in the lives of the singers who have been in the chorus in a bajillion and one ways, that whether it's just helping them believe in themselves, or whether it's helping them see that an entire other side of Jerusalem and even of their sort of local world that was previously unknown to them are actually very much like them. There are all kinds of ways that we have helped activate the singers as leaders in their communities to help open other people's eyes and ears to this possibility, that maybe people, if they were able to meet as equals and create something together in a space of trust and respect, that things could actually look very different and be better for everyone. That is huge.
Now, Micah, set us up for the video that we are about to watch.
So our second video in this segment is called Zman Litover, and it's mashed up with My Shot from Hamilton. And so what we did in this song is really take some of the process of both awakening and of taking action that happens in the chorus and manifest it in this second video. And so we've been singing the song for several years. And we've actually gotten to collaborate with a number of cast members of Hamilton, and Sha'anan Street of Hadag Nachash, who is one of the writers and original performers of Zman Litover, is in this video. But we made the video around time of extreme protest, both around protests against Bibi Netanyahu that were happening in Jerusalem, and protests for racial justice that were happening in the United States. And these were happening simultaneously, and both really, I think, involved a lot of awakening and moving onto the streets, like really taking action for creating new systems. And so that's what this video is about. And all of the footage that was taken in the video was taken by and or of either members or staff of the chorus who are actually on the streets at these protests, really raising their voices for what they wanted to see.
שמה שחשבתי הגיוני לא הגיוני בהחלט זה הספינקס שמסית מהאלף אל הבית זה הזמן להתעורר הבית מתפורר נצא מאחורים ביחד די להסתתר תרימו את היד תפתחו את הפה מול כולנו הציקו שהם יחזיקו עוד הרבה זה הזמן להתעורר הבית מתפורר נצא מאחורים ביחד די להסתתר القوة من بعض بناخدها بنجمعها والحياة عطول ماشي اسمعها انت قوي ما حدا بيقدر يوقفك بتفكر حدودك راح بتوقفك هي عشتنا هي قصتنا مرة كان صعب علينا نمشي بالشارع نطلع مع بعض سياسة واحزاب الدنيا قلية تعبت وانا طالب لهيك احنا هون وصوتنا عالي لنفجر العالم قوة الاغاني
Imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. When's it gonna get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. If I see it coming, do I run or do I let it be? Is it like a beat without a melody? See, I never thought I'd live past 20. Where I come from, some get half as many. Ask anybody why we living fast and we laugh, reach for a flask. We have to make this moment last, that's plenty.
Scratch that, this is not a moment, it's the movement. We're all the hungriest brothers with something to prove. When foes oppose us, we taking on a stand. We roll like Moses, claiming a promised land. And if we win our independence, is that a guarantee of freedom for our descendants? Or will the blood we shed begin an endless cycle of vengeance and death with no defendants?
I know the action in the street is exciting, but Jesus is between all the bleeding and fighting. I've been reading and writing. We need to handle our financial situation. Are we a nation of states? What the state of the nation? I'm past patient, be waiting. I'm passionate, smashing every expectation, every action is not creation. I'm laughing in the face of college teacher sorrow. For the first time, I'm thinking past tomorrow.
I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country and you're still being hungry and I'm not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, I'm just like my country and you're still being hungry and I'm not throwing away my shot.
Wow. Micah, thank you so much, and thank you for the wonderful work that you are doing both musically and politically and sociologically, and it's wonderful to see the results of your labors. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for being such an important part of our journey.
Thank you.